Okay, Steve, so let's start with this one. So what do you do as a structural engineer?
Okay. Well, I've first of all, I work for Thornton Tomasetti, and I've been in structural engineering for 21, so almost 23 years now. And so with this level of experience, I'm still project involved, very heavily project involved, but I'm also a manager of people at this point. So it's a combination of you know, being a leader on a project and the principal in charge or the engineer of record and being technically involved, as well as involved in meetings with ownership and client facing, as well as internally managing some of the business side at Thornton Tomasetti.
Great. Can you talk about what made you choose to pursue structural engineering?
Yes. So personally, right, as an individual, I'm a very left-brained person. I know they talk about the elimination of left brain, right brain, but I'm definitely a highly logical individual with biases towards math skills. And always growing up, I've been that way. And basically, it just tended me towards the building industry in a sense. You know, a lot of structural engineers start out thinking they want to be architects because it seems cool, and the architects always drive convertibles and wear scarves in the movies. But then you realize that you're not that creative, or although architecture can be a very technical career as well, but you realize, you know, your strength in physics and math and those more hard kind of sciences. And it just tends you in that direction. And I went that way in school, and it a little bit of luck in a sense, because you choose your major right when you get in, you know, or 2 years into college, but still, what do you really know about an industry? So it's a little bit of luck, and I've been super happy with it.
Awesome. So what does a typical day at work look like for you?
I'm gonna pretend we're not in a global pandemic right now, because it's a lot different. But you know, it's actually a lot the same, just not physically in person. But a typical day for me is, you know, I have an office like everyone else, but I'm rarely in it because there's a lot of meetings, a lot of project and client meetings, whether it's to perform a project, try and win a project, meet with someone, and then a lot of meetings with individuals in my company, whether it's the business side or managerial side, or again, the technical project management. So it's a lot of people interaction for myself. Again, at my point in my career, for the younger engineers, they're more task and kind of calculation oriented. But again, for me, I'm running around a lot, you know, minute to minute with time management is super critical.
Do you have a favorite project you worked on?
You know, I saw that question in your in your, and I'm going to answer this as a two-parter in a sense. I actually do, sort of, and just I haven't thought about it in a while, but for a while I did the it's the seat of the Milan government, so it was originally called the Ultra Slata Milan something in Italy, and it was with Pay Cup Freedom Partners and the late Harry Cobb, and I really enjoyed that project on many levels. I love the project. I've actually been to it, which is great. That's part of what's awesome about our career, right? We can go and see things that we've been a part of. The team, you know, the team and the architecture team and the owner, and just, it was just a really enjoyable experience. And I really liked the project. You know, I'm not the architect and the engineer, but we were able to have a collaborative experience and actually do some influence on the architecture, which was kind of cool. So that, I think, stands out. But the reason I want to say it's a two-parter is because I do a lot of, believe it or not, data centers, which are, you know, very functional buildings. You're not going to see them on the, you know, the cover of Architectural Digest or Record. But I often really enjoy the people I work with. So it's not always about, you know, the project and seeing it in a photo. It's a big part of it's the people you work with, and they really can make a project enjoyable. Even if it's not, you know, the most glamorous thing you're doing.
That's great. Okay, so following up, like, you know, about you just mentioning that you work on data centers, when you're designing these structures, do you have to accommodate for like future changes in technology?
Yes. the yes, the structure is for all buildings is a pretty fundamental, basic part, right, of the building. There's a lot of smaller components to it, but you're right. For a technology build like that, or whether a hospital, right, a healthcare hospital institute, or higher education, these are highly technical places that like to be advanced. So you have to make sure that you do think a little bit ahead. Again, the structure is forgiving in a sense if it's beams and slabs, and what's technology. But yes, the data center is a giant piece of technology, so there's definitely a need to accommodate future, and flexibility is in general a big part of, again, healthcare, mission critical, those kind of things. So it's more about flexibility than, obviously, because you don't know what's coming. So the answer is yes.
Now, following up on that, I feel like being an engineer who designs data centers is very niche. How did you end up on that path?
So good question. And so this is kind of like, I'm not old enough to be wise, but one thing I'm going to say is that it's important to be somewhat passionate about what you do and interested in what you do, because it'll lead you to an interest and people will feed off that. So, and the data centers, like I said, the team I was working with and the people I worked with, the architecture firm in particular that I worked with for early on, especially, was Gensler, who plays a big part in ACE as well. Plug there. But we had a really good relationship, and it was a time when this market was kind of really growing, and we had a good team, and we just got a lot of projects and just kind of evolved because, again, we worked well together, and it was a successful team, and we were all enjoying what we were doing. So it's I know it's cliche, but I think it's really important that you enjoy what you do. It's that simple.
Great. So where do you think the industry is headed in, let's say, the next 50 years?
So, right. I'm gonna any answer I hope is taken as my humble opinion. There's always talk about construction not being innovative enough. But at the same time, we're constantly trying to be innovative. There's so many pieces to construction in terms of starting from the top, right? I teach at Pratt, and I used to give this speech more, but the reality is there's very few things that are there's very, I mean, how do I put this? I'm gonna go the other way. Most things are built because they're going to make money, right? And so there's a process in place, and kind of the way things are done, that kind of, once we get in a groove, it goes that way for a while in construction. Construction is like an aircraft carrier. It's hard to turn, but it has over time, whether it's materials, design, even design philosophies have changed, office building layouts, hospitals, certainly. So all these different things evolve. So where the construction industry is going, though, is very obviously technical, right? And modeling. Are we going to get away from drawings, for instance? There's always talk about, when are drawings going to go away, because everything's going to be in a model and it's going to be three-dimensional. And it's bound to get there somehow, but you have to follow the paces. So the whole point of me talking about the money part is that it starts with an owner and it ends with, in the field being built. But there's so many steps along the way that need to be on board with how the technology evolves, including the construction industry. So, which is changing constantly. So, if I was to say in 50 years, obviously we're still going to need buildings. So, and, taller, bigger, narrower, slender, what is it going to be? Go down, go up, all sorts of changes in 50 years are going to make differences. But I think the biggest thing is the technology side of it, and becoming more virtual or three-dimensional or modeled than physical during the design process.
So I've been pretty interested in what I've heard about accelerated bridge construction and modular construction. And, this is speaking a little bit to what you were saying about these innovations in construction methods. Can you just talk a little bit about it? Have you worked on any projects that used it?
Yes, I can speak to the modular, not so much the bridges, as I haven't done a lot of bridges, especially large scale bridges. Pedestrian bridges are a different thing, but I've been on multiple studies of modular buildings, and I think that buildings are very unique and very specific, depending on function and form, and different markets or different types of buildings, residential, office, healthcare, right? Higher learning, sports facilities, arenas, stadiums. Different types of buildings will lend themselves better to modular. Obviously, it's taken hotels, right? Very repetitive, very redundant. And there's safety benefits during construction to modular construction. There's some time acceleration, but it needs to be the right building. I do think modular is important and coming into play more, but I think it needs to be very considerate and deliberate about where you're using it and how you're using it. Or when I think of hospitals, for instance, which is one we had studied, a lot of the components can be modular. A lot of the pieces slide in rooms, slide in walls, those kind of things, and save a lot of time and help with quality and again safety, like we were saying during construction. Fully modular buildings are more of a challenge to get them as efficient. But we're getting there and we're getting better. And with the right buildings, it's certainly technology. It's a broad technology that should be considered and thought through and implemented in many cases to save time and money.
Great, that's really interesting. All right, so have you noticed any changes in the engineering world since you started working?
Yes. Yes. Believe it, like I said, summer of 1998 is when I started, and we barely used email, right? We used faxes. So just right there, I think one of the, if we take a step back in the question, because we can talk about all the little different nuances of technologies. We didn't have cell phones, right? Or not many people did. We certainly didn't have, email at our fingertips. But I think the biggest end result of the specifics of what I would tell you the changes are is the speed. Everything is so fast because literally when you go back before me, even if you had to correspond, you could have a phone call, but any sort of document correspondence was through the mail. So now something that can be emailed, responded to, and turned around, in minutes had to be mailed, written out, mailed back. So the big thing is the volume of work we can do and how quickly we do it, and the anticipation from the the client side of your reactivity and speed to produce has increased. So that's a big part of it, is the speed of the industry now.
Awesome. That's like really something you don't think about. So that's great to hear.
That's good.
Okay. So what led you to be a mentor in the ACE program?
I got to remember. So I haven't been a mentor for a little while, but I think it was just a general, again, we talk, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but enjoying what you do. And I also, like I said, I teach at Pratt, which is the architecture school there, but I teach the engineering topics to the architects. So for me personally, I'm inclined, I like to teach people, and I'm enjoying this conversation because I like talking about what I do. And so I think it was just that general inclination, and I heard about it, through Thornton Tomasetti, and had the opportunity and really liked the idea of working with the high school kids, and again, just talking about what we do and trying to, get them interested. If they're interested, nurture that interest, and I think it helps students understand the industry, and if they want to get involved in it or don't want to get involved in it, because even when that was part of it, was just talking to them, right? We had our lessons and we had our projects, but I think some of the real value is just talking to the students and getting to know them better and letting them kind of bounce questions off you. I don't want to say ideas, but it was more of questions, and to get them better, help them hopefully make some decisions as they move forward, in high school and college and whatnot.
Why do you think the ACE program is so important for the industry overall?
You know, I think it can be thought of throughout any industry in a sense to kind of further educate students, right? And we're generally in high school students, so to further educate people who are just learning and growing about any industry, there's so much value in that, because it's and again, so ACE, right? It brings people into the offices to physically see the offices, see what we do, all the different components of construction, architectural, construction, engineering, right? And the exposure is knowledge for the students, and more knowledge there's so much value in as much knowledge as people can gain. So what was the question? It was the value, right? I'm sorry, I got caught up in my own answer here. But you know, I think it's a tremendous value for the students to be exposed to the industry in such a firsthand manner, and I think that's where I see the importance.
Great. So aside from participating in the ACE program, what are some other ways a high school student could prepare themselves to potentially enter the industry one day?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Obviously, internships are, to be fair though, it's tough for high school students because, you know, at our firm, we always try to have some. Obviously, we focus on further on in their education, college students, just because it's more pragmatic. They know more, or they've been taught, right, educated in what we do. Whereas high school students, it's more about just exposure again to the work environment. So that's one thing. I mean, reading is invaluable, right? And reading books about whatever you want to read about, not just our industry, is a way to prepare. But I just think really kind of thinking about what you enjoy as a student is important. Think about the topics you enjoy, right? If you know, if you enjoy writing and reading, or not that we don't enjoy reading and writing as engineers, but if you really enjoy writing and have a passion for that, I mean, there's even a place in all fields for writing, right? People write about architecture, people write about engineering. But I think what's very important to prepare is not so much of a physical preparation in something you're going to do, but to mentally prepare and understand about what your interests are and what you like to do, so that you find yourself doing something that you day in, day out, you know, want to do and want to grow with. I think that's a key.
Great. And do you have any advice for young professionals who are maybe finishing up college or just entering the industry?
Yes. Let me think for a second on this one, because, you know, we get a lot of young hires, and there's, you know, certainly people that stand out. I think that, you know, ambition shows, and a certain humbleness of understanding what you don't know, because there's so much to learn. And again, what you learn in school is paramount and critical and important, but you're going to learn so much more on the job. So it's kind of like a willingness and eagerness to learn and grow, and just kind of the appreciation and respect for how much people, you know, I have a lot of appreciation and respect for the people who came before me and what they accomplished. And I think it's important for everybody to feel that way, no matter how far in their career. So, because it'll just, it creates a great rapport with those around you. It's always important to be respectful and appreciative of everything in life, but in a career, it's very important, because again, there's, you know, I had a very good mentor and boss who always said there's no substitute for experience. So, you know, understanding that every day you're experiencing something new and learning something new, and really valuing that as a young engineer is going to help you grow and appreciate the industry and those around you. So that attitude will really take you places.
That was really excellent. Thank you.